Okay, I want to welcome those of you who are joining us via Facebook and also those who are here in person at Calvary Baptist Church for our final skill builder and final panel discussion for 2024. We've had two changes that have affected this panel from when it was previously put together. One change is that Connor Palmer, who's a student pastor at McQueenie Baptist Church, was not able to be here because he and his wife just welcomed a new baby son who showed up a little earlier than planned. And so we gave Connor an excused absence from being on the panel today. And so we have these two gentlemen. Rowdy Lynn, student pastor at the Connection Church. So Rowdy, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your family and how long you've been doing this kind of ministry.
Yeah. My name is Rowdy, obviously. I've been married to my wife for 6 years. We have 3 beautiful children. We have been at the Connection Church for a little over 12 years. Been in student ministry pretty much right when we got there for like 11 years or so. And I took over the youth ministry, was licensed and ordained at the heart of COVID. So it was super fun. So
you're a pandemic minister.
Yes.
All right.
And this is giving me a little PTSD right here in front of me.
I would imagine so. So, hey, glad you're with us, Rowdy.
Yes, I'm happy to be here.
The other change that affected this panel is that our other panelist today, Brian Gunter, no stranger to this group, he is a lame duck student pastor now. His church 2 Sundays ago elected him to be the next lead pastor of First Baptist Canyon Lake Church, right?
Yeah.
So Brian is completing how many years in student ministry making this transition?
14.
14 years, and all at First Baptist Canyon Lake, correct? Introduce these folks, tell them a little bit about your family.
My name's Brian. I'm married to Melanie, and I've got 3 little girls, and one of them is not so little anymore. She's a 5th grader, and I don't like it. I've been at First Baptist Canyon Lake for, 14 and a half technically. My first setting foot on campus was almost 15 years ago, around now. I went to go help with Sunday school, and I guess never look back.
Amen.
But yeah, God's been good to us, and I think anything else that you asked me that I forgot to answer?
Okay. I think you covered it. The best thing about the church electing Brian as their next lead pastor is that it means they get to fire their interim pastor, who is me, and I'm glad. I'm always happy to be fired from such assignments. All right, so we're talking about student ministries that make disciples instead of dropouts. All right. So let me read you some statistics. LifeRate research found that 2/3 of young adults who regularly attended a Protestant church for at least 1 year during high school stopped attending church sometime in the 4 years after high school. So 2/3 of those who were regular attenders at some point in high school stopped attending in the 4 years after high school. So among those dropouts, Lifeway research found that a little less than 1/3 of them actually returned to regular church attendance later on, at some point post-college or post the 4 years out of high school. So 2/3 left, and of the 2/3 left, only about 1/3 of them are known to have come back. So the first question for these two experienced student ministry leaders is this: why do you think there are so many dropouts? What is it? What are the factors that seem relevant to you, both inside and outside of the church, that are contributing to this? Rowdy, we'll start with you. Let me hand you the microphone.
I think the worldview is obviously overtaken the youth. I think it presents itself as a little more attractive. And so that leads to, they can find similar feelings, which is what the world is chasing right now, unfortunately, in other places. I think of King Herod, who was assigned and threatened and said, I just ordered all the babies to be killed. I think, what other way to attack the future of the world than to attack the future of the church? And I think it's so important to note that. And also a few things, we can promote giveaways in youth ministry and really kind of build the hype up, the excitement. But what's really going to allow them to, maybe I'm answering ahead of the question,
Okay,
but the dropout rate, they'll come for the giveaways or the big event, but what are they staying for? I think is important to note too. So,
All right, so just basically the messages from the world that are more attractive to them at that age, and then the big event factor in the church, but not necessarily the
retention
and that kind of thing. All right, Brian, what are you seeing that's contributing to the dropout rate?
I think one of them is that they can find the entertainment and community that maybe we lean on really heavily in our message in youth ministry. I think kind of what you're talking about, Rowdy. They can find that in other places. I was just talking. This isn't on the youth ministry spectrum, but I was talking to a dad of a family that's kind of been disconnected for a little while ever since COVID. I was having lunch with him. And he was talking about his son getting involved in Little League, and he thought, I just never saw myself as a Little League dad. Like, just never, sports are not his thing, anything like that. But he said, what's weird is 2.5 years in, I feel like I've got people that I can call, and people that, if I've got something that needs to happen in my house, or I need to learn how to do something, or like I've got these people. And I've been at our church long enough to know that he had those people at our church too. I think that the fact that they can find some of those tangibles is definitely a reason that they leave and don't come back. I think also they misunderstand what it means to follow Jesus, and they have an idea that following Jesus or being a Christian is about attending a church or having a certain group of friends or whatever, and they don't have a robust understanding of what it means to be a disciple and what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And the last one that I've noticed, just with the students that have graduated out of our youth ministry, but they hung around in the community, but they're not with us anymore. They lose what connection they had to the body of Christ, maybe because they wanted to go do their own thing for a little while, or maybe they went and did 2 years of college somewhere and came back, or there's all a bunch of different kinds of reasons. But when they came back, there was never any connection that was kept, and sort of a handing off of, hey, you were at our church for 6 years. Have you found a church up there in Belton where you are? Oh, I know a guy up there. Those kinds of things. We either haven't handed them off well, or we haven't kept our connections with them well. So I think that's the part that I feel like I would own on my end.
So in some cases, you're seeing that people, not just the young adults themselves, but families finding replacement communities for what they may have once had at church, right?
Yep.
So it's not like church is the only place they can find that kind of community. There are a lot of other competing opportunities. All right, so let's focus then inside the church here for this next question. What are some of the mistakes that you think student ministries make that contribute to this dropout rate? I mean, some things that maybe are being done within student ministries themselves that might not be helping in terms of long-term retention. Brian, we'll start with you, and then you can pass the microphone to Rowdy.
I think the first one that I would throw out there is entertainment-driven youth ministry, like Rowdy was talking about, sort of the bring them in style of youth ministry. I see that a lot. We've tried it, we've given it a shot, and it just doesn't really seem to exactly what you said, that they might come, but what are they staying for? Yeah. And I think that's the better question to ask. I think one that I've seen too is that we generally have a low expectation of teenagers. We sort of categorize them as this demographic of people to deal with, rather than a demographic of people that's vital to the church. And I think that contributes to, I think that's a mistake, maybe not the youth ministries themselves makes, but churches can make as they are providing expectations and leadership to their youth ministers and their youth ministries. And the other one would be siloing off the students from the church. I have seen that before. I grew up in youth ministries where that didn't happen, and so we haven't really played around with that idea much at our church. But one of the greatest victories that I ever saw, or just I don't know, just an observable story that was super fun to watch was when one of our Sunday school teachers of our oldest Sunday school classes, so there, he was probably had like late 60s to 80s. His name is Elvis Wilson. When he decided to be a youth ministry volunteer and come and be a part of, and the conversations he would have, and he would invite students to other church things and stuff like that. And so I think one of the mistakes is we kind of we need to only give teenagers their flavor of ministry, and I think that would be a mistake.
Yeah.
Jim O'Neill, would you second that?
Yeah.
Jim started in youth ministry at about age 80.
Awesome.
Rowdy, mistakes that you think student ministries are making that contribute to dropout?
Yeah, I think we treat them like kids, to go what you're saying. I know that sounds counterintuitive, like they are kids, Rowdy, but I think really they're dealing with a lot of the same things we're dealing with. They just have less bills to pay. And if we're honest, some of them are working to pay bills. And so they're walking in with the same thing, not to mention the world at their disposal to Google and look at whatever they want to look at. And I think in youth ministry, 1 Timothy 4:12, like the most common youth pastor supported verse, don't let anyone look down on you because you're young, but set an example for the believers in speech and conduct and love and faith and purity. And as youth ministries, as churches, if we truly believe this, then what we're saying from stage, the sermons that we're preaching on Wednesdays, when our student pastor is ministering, when our student team is leading, it needs to match that. Like they are more than capable. We have not split up. And we see this past Wednesday, 287 teenagers came in the building. We average about 200 teenagers on a Wednesday night, and we don't split up the service. We don't. And people have asked, like, why don't you do a separate? I don't think that's the issue. What are we going to dumb down a sermon? If parents have talked to me and they're like, my kid doesn't need to be hearing about this. Does your kid go to public school? They're like, yes. And your kid is hearing about it. I would much rather them hear it from God's word and the truth of the platform in church than some kid in school that we're hoping is maybe PG and has a biblical worldview, which they don't.
They're definitely hearing about it at private schools.
Yeah, they're hearing about it everywhere. And if we're being honest, they're hearing about it at homeschool too, because parents aren't really monitoring what their kids are looking at.
Sure.
So, and that's just a part of it. I think this idea that we can hope, and I call it a bumper sticker believer, I don't think we're in that age where we can really sit on the wayside and kind of, maybe we never should have been there. But I think in past, we could have just kind of resorted back to that. A lot less people are going to church. 4% of Gen Zers, which is the youth that we're talking about, have a biblical worldview. It means 96% of them don't, which means 96% of them probably aren't in church. And I think it's a huge component when we're teaching and preaching and talking about these things. I was just telling somebody at a table, we do a series in May specifically. We don't mess with curriculums. We sit with our team and we plan out for the year what our series look like. And we basically sat down and said, we're going to do a crazy series that's going to have 3 big weeks, and we're going to talk about 3 big topics. What should they be? And we did it 2 years ago for the first time. It was called Elephant in the Room was the series. And we talked about sexual identity. We talked about addiction, and we talked about mental health. And so we go to plan this year in May. We're like, all right, what do we talk about? We circle back to sexual identity, addiction, and mental health. And we called it Trigger Happy. And that made a lot of people upset, and it made me really happy because I think if we're not going to talk about this, especially to the now generation, we won't even call them the next generation. They're the future of the church. Our pastor always says, and I'm sure you've heard it, Christianity is 1 generation away from becoming extinct. And if you're a lead pastor in here, prioritize youth ministry. Prioritize it. Be showcasing what happens in kids on Sundays. Be showcasing what happens on Wednesday nights on Sundays. The church wants to hear about it, and guess what? That's how you get 80-year-old volunteers to step in and get excited because they're talking with 16-year-olds. They're leading small groups in high school. Yeah. It's amazing thing to be a part of. So as a church, we've got to not treat them like kids and preach the truth to them.
Yeah. That's right.
So I hear you guys saying and the big things are not so much siloing off the student ministry from the rest of the church, but having higher expectations about young adults, teenagers as disciples and as servants. This is I'm going to interject a kind of a related question here before we go into the next one, and that is, how have you seen teenagers in your ministries utilized effectively in service? Not just coming to stuff that's fun for kids, but how have you seen them utilized to serve in ministry, to be ministry leaders themselves in their churches?
We've seen it in our children's ministry for sure, helping in the nursery, children's church, Sunday school, those kinds of things, leading those Bible studies. Of course, Vacation Bible School at our church wouldn't happen without our youth ministry. They're vitally important to that ministry. We see them. We've had them on our worship team. We've had them lead prayers in the worship service. They do mission trips. I mean, it's kind of the just any area where they've got the gift to bring to the table. You know, we want to let them. I mean, just like any church member. And I think that's the thing is, at least the lens that I try to think through is they're church members just like everybody else. And so God has made them with specific gifts. Sure, maybe they're a little bit rougher around the edges on some of their gifts, but so are we on some things. So help, and we can use it. We can either keep them away from those opportunities until they get better, or we can disciple them to serve in those areas and to knock some of those rough edges off.
Rowdy, you want to add to that?
All the same areas. We have opportunities to serve on Wednesday nights. We have opportunities to serve on Sundays. The only area they can't serve is our safety and security team, because they have to be 18 or older.
Right.
Outside of that, serving back in kids, serving on the worship team. We do something in the summer called summer internships. This is specifically for teenagers, and they are doing anything, everything, or nothing at all, whatever's for the betterment of the team. Mega Sports Camp, which is VBS for us, they're serving out in the heat, running around loading golf carts. I wish I could show you the pictures on my phone. They have a golf cart loaded with like 10 teenagers on it. It's definitely dropped down to a lowrider setting. It's got too much weight on it. They got stuff piled on top, and they're doing it together. And to them, it's fun. Also, to us, it's building the church. Right, yeah. And I think that's the important part, is having them serve in every area. Building the church is a huge part of it, and student ministry is a part of that too.
Yeah. We might have already answered part of that, talking about students in being utilized as part of serving the church and leading the ministry of the church. But in your experience, what are some other key factors that help a student become a committed disciple? What are some of the key factors that ministry leaders can influence that will help students become not just a church attender and hopefully not a dropout, but actually a committed disciple of Jesus Christ? What can ministry leaders do to lessen that dropout rate?
Rowdy, we'll start with you.
Letting them be a part of the ministry, like we just talked about, is huge. I just mentioned summer internships. This is the third year we've done it. It's grown every year. We basically send out a Google form, and we say, hey, here's the areas, the different departments that you can serve in, where you feel like God is going to use your gifting and talents. And we always say, hey, if you get into it and like 3 days into the internship, you're like, hey, this isn't my thing. I want to move you. It's not a major, and even if it is, you switch out and find out where God's going to use you best. That's been huge. We do student leadership on Wednesdays, any Wednesday that we have youth. At 5:30, our youth group starts at 7. So for an hour and a half, they are going through a Devo. They're praying for the night, and they're helping us set up. A big part of that is tear down. Another thing that we did is with those summer internships, we have 2 or 3 individuals, like young people, that are say they're called to be a pastor. And so they preached all summer. Every Wednesday they preached. I didn't step on stage once. They preached all summer. We have a running Google Doc. I can break that down for anybody who's got questions about that. But they preach. I think a good leader doesn't just hand off the things that they don't want to do. I think a good leader, a leader will stop them. a good leader will give the things that they love to do. And the thing I love to do the most is talk, clearly, because I've been talking this entire time. But I love to do that. And so I have to give that off as well and walk them through that and coach them through that and give correction. And we found is young people want to be corrected. They need that. They need the guidance, whether they're not getting it at home or they are, and they're just looking for godly counsel. It's a huge benefit for us. Last thing is we have every Thursday morning, our team and myself, usually it's my wife and myself, will call all first-time guest parents from the night before. And we get teenagers' phone numbers as well. And so we send that out to our teenager team. And so there's a long list every Thursday morning. It's annoying and awesome at the same time. My phone is going crazy. But they're just, I got this person. And they're reaching out in the attempt that from Thursday to Saturday, they sit at a table, hopefully at some point. They're like, hey, the student pastor talked to me today. Like, one of the teenagers talked, maybe we should go on Sunday. I think that's a huge part, again, not isolating it, but using it as a momentum to build the church as a whole is huge.
So your first contact is with the parents of those who were first-timers the evening before? Yes.
So every Thursday morning I'll call, and sometimes it's a lot, and sometimes it's a lot. This past Wednesday it was 48 first-time guests. Okay. So I'm calling 48 parents. And then we're sending out 48 student numbers to our student leaders that were interns usually, and they'll reach out to them. You have some kind of
an information gathering process so that you have the parents' contact information on
it's a Google form. We found that we try to throw a lot of information at it, and teenagers just want to get into the building and go have fun with their friends.
Right.
As they do, they're teenagers. And so we've just boiled it down to parents' first name, last name, parents' phone number, their phone number, and then their name.
Okay. Would you share that Google Doc with other churches?
You can share that Google form, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right. Cool. Brian, things that ministries can do to reduce that dropout rate and help actually make committed disciples in teenagers. What do you see?
I want to say first that I am up here taking notes. That is really, really good stuff, and I'm going to implement some of it when I get home. In my weird interim next
lame duck period.
Lame duck period.
Yes.
You're no longer a student pastor. You
can can't do that. Yeah. I think to some key factors in helping students become disciples. One of them would be defining clearly what a disciple is and what a follower of Jesus is. I think. That is one of the biggest things that I come across with our students is they don't really understand what that commitment is. Maybe they made that commitment, 5 years ago, even at our church in Vacation Bible School, and they might have been told then, but are we all the way through their discipleship process reminding them that this following Jesus thing is not a Sunday and Wednesday thing, or a Wednesday or just a Sunday thing, or at camp, or but what is it? And I think I've switched to using the term following Jesus a lot because I think it's descriptive to them. I think they get, okay, like be like him. Yeah, I get that. So that's something that I've done. Encouraging relationships with seasoned followers of Jesus. That can be a seasoned follower of Jesus that's a teenager, or a seasoned follower of Jesus that's a 30-year-old, or a 50, 80, 90-year-old. Anywhere in between, but making sure they have those relationships. I think about my youth ministry professor at Southwestern, Richard Ross. He made the argument that if you could, citing this very study, said if you could help your students have 5 meaningful relationships with believers, then the research says that it skyrockets their likelihood that they will hang around the church. Maybe not your church, but they will hang around the Big C church. And so he talked about it like if you can, you want to share the gospel with their parents, because if their parents are saved, that's a big one. And then they have a relationship with their youth pastor. They have a relationship with their Sunday school teacher. They've got a relationship with the senior pastor in some form or fashion. And then his last one was, what if every student in your youth ministry had a relationship with a senior adult that has been with Christ for a long time? And I love that. So I'll throw that one at you. allowed to participate in meaningful ministry, like we've already discussed, and then I think helping them develop spiritual disciplines and that intimacy with Christ. That it's not your faith isn't just something that sort of is pouring out of you and things that you do, but also it's developing that relationship with the King of Kings. I think is an important part of that too. Huge. I love it.
All right, final question for these two guys, and then we'll take your questions if you have them. All right, so for student ministries, ministry leaders who want to make disciples and not dropouts, in other words, your goal is making disciples and lowering that dropout rate, how would you complete this sentence? Whatever you do, make sure you blank. Brian, we'll start with you.
There's so many answers to this question. I wrote down, whatever you do, make sure you are someone that people can follow to Jesus.
That's good. Using mic drop.
That's it. No.
I don't even know if
It's descriptive.
I can't follow that up. I said, however, that question.
Whatever you do, make sure you
keep a revolving door. And
Yeah.
I think that's one thing as a student pastor. If our numbers are growing on a Wednesday night and it's not reflected on Sunday, I'm not doing my job. I'm not doing my job. If I'm not empowering, if our team, which is another thing I don't think we mentioned, but having a solid youth team. You may be like, I only have 2 people. Then make it the best 2 people. Like those are your disciples. You disciple them, they will go out, they'll bring people, they'll get excited. And as a student pastor, if it's just reflected, like, yes, I'm sure we all want a packed room on a Sunday or a Wednesday. That's a byproduct for me. And it should be a byproduct for you of growing heaven. You see what I'm saying? Like it's one of those things that like we want to, yes, absolutely I want to, but I've also preached to an empty room before. I've preached to myself in a mirror. Like I'm not opposed to preaching to an empty room. Like it's awesome to have a full room, but it's got to be a revolving door. I want to see those teenagers on a Wednesday.
Define that revolving door for us. What do you mean by that?
With the follow-ups.
Okay.
So for us, we see right now it's about 35-ish%. I wish I had more strict numbers for you guys. It's about 35% of our teenagers just come on Wednesdays, which means either parents don't come on Sundays or they would be there, they just can't drive, the kids themselves. And so a revolving door for us means it's unison. We are not a silo ministry. We are a youth ministry of the Connection Church.
So you're talking about multiple touches in a given week, not just the one touch.
Absolutely. That's the attempt of us calling on a Thursday and teenagers reaching out to that kid as well in the attempt that they would show up on a Sunday. And we've seen more and more. We have a pastor who's our associate pastor. He makes phone calls to first-time guests at our beauty campus. And more we're hearing that parents are showing up because their kid, and the reason is their kid came to youth the night before. And so now we're watching, the cool thing is we're watching 14-year-olds go home, tell them about, they just gave their life to Jesus, don't really fully understand it yet, which who can really comprehend that, right? But going home and being so excited, they're telling their parents, and they're showing up on a Sunday, revolving door, right? Keeping that whole thing open. It's a church. And again, I think the student pastors, we can kind of get in this silo ministry thing. It's not, I want to grow heaven. Yeah, I want the church full. Absolutely. So awesome to see a bunch of teenagers, and it is fun. But I want to see hands raised. That's the number I care not so much about. I care more about salvations. I care more about people raising their hand and understanding that. So a revolving door is huge.
Okay. Ryan, do you want to add anything to that? Whatever you do, make sure you said you had more on your list.
Oh no, I think it would just be someone who people can follow to Jesus. Okay. And I guess what I mean by that is that if we will keep him the reason that we do what we do, and if we will keep him the one that we are shepherding and leading people to, I don't know how we can go wrong.
Okay. All right. So being an example of what a disciple looks like.
Yeah. Right.
In a winsome way. All right. Questions for these two guys? Yeah, JK?
I just wonder what are you guys doing about athletic idolatry?
All right, the question is, what are you doing about athletic idolatry?
That's all you meant.
See if I can make something up. I do want to take a second to think about it. If you think of something, just grab the mic.
I'm ready to rock.
So I'm a chaplain, and our team is super involved in all three of the high schools for sure in our area, and working towards middle schools. My first job, and we know what that means. It's unpaid internship at the church. It was my first job at the church, and I was the outreach director. And they're real clever. They gave a 20-year-old young kid a title to make him feel like he was important. And so my job, I grew up in Kyle and Buda, so I graduated from Lincoln High School. And so I remember being in high school and not, like my senior year, not wanting to go to the homecoming game. Like I just wasn't into it. And then it's a big thing, the freshman year of college, you come back to town. Wasn't even into it. And so I remember when I got offered that position, the thing was to be in the schools. And I remember looking at God, are you serious? This is the one place I didn't want to be back in. Well, I love sports, big into sports. And so the only way I found to be able to get in, we have a better system now. When we first started, was I'm just going to bull rush the sports. I'm sending out to the athletic directors emails. I'm sending out to the coaches. Basketball, really is basketball and football. Those are my two things. It was the easiest in for me. And so we just started doing that. And what that looked like for us was, and I'm going to attempt to get to your question. What it looked like for us was building a relationship with the coaches.
Yeah.
And so when we had a big event on a Wednesday night, guess what? They canceled practice. Why? Because they're in our fantasy football league. You see what I'm saying? There's a relationship established because we're going in. I sat in with one of the coaches in the football office, and I went in with the intention, like I brought him lunch. Cool, awesome. We sat and had lunch in his office, and I just said, hey, what are the problems you're seeing? This was 2 weeks ago. What are some problems you're seeing? And I'm not joking, for like 45 minutes, he got on a whiteboard and drew plays. Well, this is why we got to cover the edge here, and we got nobody on line. I just watched as this man talked about something he was passionate about. I didn't have an agenda. I didn't come in and say, hey, this or that. And now Wednesday mornings, we go to all the football teams. We drop off Gatorade. We pray for them. We invite them. And they're aware of our full calendar, what we have, what events we have. We're engaging right now in the sense of having the 3 football coaches on a panel with us at one of these Wednesday nights here soon. And so really just developing them. They want to see, how are you going to help the team? How is this going to benefit? And it's terrible, but that's the notion that we're in. The coaches aren't seeing it. They're cussing up a storm at practice. They're doing all this. Pastor's present. They don't care about any of that, which is fine. I mean, I've seen what Jesus can do in my life, so I know he can work in their lives too. And so it just leads into the relational aspect, and then it bleeds into a whole other things where they're just letting us in the building. It's amazing.
Sounds like you're describing the difference between a partnership versus an adversary.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Attitude.
Yeah.
For them. That's nice. Go ahead.
I affirm all of that. We have seen that at the high school.
Yep.
I got surprised. We helped lead the Fields of Faith event at Canyon Lake High School, and I got surprised they canceled football practice. And so they never told me. They never gave me any impression that was going to happen. We were contacting them, saying, hey, how can we work around you guys? We don't want to get in your way, all that stuff. And then we showed up to go sit up, and nobody was there because they had canceled practice. And sure enough, a whole slew of kids came, and it was really good. So I think developing the relationship is really important. I think the thing that I would add that I'm certain you already do, Rowdy, is also just help students entertain the idea of standing up for their faith and approaching the adults in their life that are calling these practices, rehearsals, things like that, and say, hey, I'm really committed to this team, to this program, but I would like to go to church on Wednesday. How can we make that happen? Do you want me to come in another time? Do you want and really coach them on how to have that conversation with those adults? And you don't want to send them into the lion's den necessarily. I think the same goes for equipping parents too, and helping parents have a vision for, it's not a terrible thing to go approach the leader of this program and ask for 30 minutes so that they can make it to church on time.
It's good.
All right, other questions? We have one from Fucking Hands Church.
Yes, I've got 2 questions. The first question is, please forgive me if I say something negative. In that church, the fellowship has become dry or it's too poor results. What's causing kids to actually drop out from the boredom?
Okay, so question is, what causes students to drop out from student ministries because it's just not appealing to them? It's not interesting. What are some mistakes that we can make that would kind of send kids away? Did I get that right, Larry?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's important while we spoke pretty heavily against sort of the entertainment way of doing youth ministry, there is an amount of contextualization that I think is important within the youth ministry, but also that's important within the church house and how we do worship services and how we invite them in. It's one thing to say, you're invited, you're welcome to be here, but if everything that you're doing is telling them that we don't care what you think and you're invited, but sit down and be quiet, then are they really invited? I think is worth asking ourselves. So are we, church-wise, are we doing things to let them know that they have a place? And I think that will let them know that they have a place and keep them from being bored because they're engaged.
I think everybody, we say this, but specifically young people, are looking for community, identity, and purpose. And while I do say, with that getting them here for one night, the hype, the entertainment, but we also have video games in our middle school.
Yeah.
So there are things that we have to do, and not have. I don't want to get to a compromise argument, but what's going to get the faithful young people, make it an easier invite for them to bring their friends who don't know church, who don't know Jesus, who have heard nothing but negative. It's going to be Fortnite in the middle school lobby. That's going to be the thing that's going to get them. It's going to be the Chick-fil-A cookies. Now they're going to come because of those things. They're going to leave with Jesus. That's the important part to know. So I've never also heard of any teenager leave because they're bored. Just to answer specifically, I've heard them leave because it's too loud. So I've never too loud, too crazy. No teenager has ever left and been like, man, it's just nothing for me there.
Yeah.
They've left because it's a lot
It's
for
too
me
much.
there. There's too much for me there.
Yeah.
And
So you
that's
can over-program.
Sure, you can, absolutely. You can throw a lot out of it. And what we found now is that they just don't like the loud worship. So they'll be able to hear it with the doors cracked, have their headphones on, and then they'll go inside and be able to enjoy the service.
Yes.
And we try everything we can to keep them in the doors. This may be terrible, and y'all can, get me later if you want to, but I've been guilty of letting a specific teenager, he didn't get a chance to play Fortnite, and he doesn't like the loud music, so I've let him play Fortnite during worship. That may be terrible, but he came in, we make sure leaders come in when I get on stage, and he gets to hear the greatest story ever told, that Jesus died on the cross for him, and he gave his life to Jesus. So that's what it's about for me.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Yeah, Steve.
Going back to this question about athletic idolatry, I was talking to you earlier. Just how would you talk to parents? I know Rowdy had some good stuff to say.
Yeah.
How would you talk to parents, just showing them the perspective and what's supposed to be prioritized?
All right. So talking with parents of your students about the athletic idolatry issue, about maybe challenging them, hopefully in a gracious way, about maybe some of the decisions they make that affect their kids and as related to sports and church involvement. All right. So Rowdy, he says you had some good things to say on that. So
I sure hope I do.
I think my first couple years in student ministry, as a student pastor, I remember talking to one of our other pastors, hey, when do I get to actually pastor students? Because I felt like it was a lot of telling parents how to parent. Not being at camps, not prioritizing Wednesday nights. They would call me and my kid's not, I haven't seen you on a Sunday or a Wednesday in 3 months. And we've talked about that too, the parallel between the two. Are you living out what you're going home to? I think we talked about that as well. We don't have an issue prioritizing things. We prioritize what matters to us.
Right.
And therein lies the issue. What matters to us, majority of the time, doesn't matter to God. And so we prioritize sports, which is awesome. And again, I love sports. But we've just got put to the test. Our daughter, who's 5, and my son, they started playing soccer. Well, they had their weird schedule change, and it was on Sunday. And we had said before they started playing sports, no sports on Wednesdays, no sports on Sundays. Well, now we're met 2 weeks ago with a moment of like, the worst part is at 1. So technically she could have gone, and we had to stand our ground and say, hey, this is what we're not going to do. And we just talked to coaches. So yes, there's a graceful moment, but some of it, they just need to hear like your kid's not going pro. Like your kid's not going pro. You may enjoy it in the moment, but my fear is you will regret it in the long run.
Yeah.
When your kid is prioritized football, flag football, volleyball, whatever it is, any sport, chess club for all we care, like video games, like they're going to prioritize these things. You can leave room for that, but when you get to heaven, God's not going to ask you how many passes did you have on your letterman. He's going to ask you, what did you do with what I gave you, right? Did you go as the star athlete, right, and say, hey, I won't be here. Like the team is going to suffer, so now coach is in a position where like, the best player's not going to be there, he's going to youth. Might as well cancel practice and send everybody to youth, like those type of moments. So having conversations with parents, being genuine with them, challenging them. I've found more often than not, we overthink how the conversation is going to play out. And so when you get into that conversation, praying beforehand, praying for God to speak through you clearly and concisely, for you to be calm and collected, and for God to be prepping hearts in the conversation, and having a conversation. Hey, this is what I'm noticing. And I've told parents, don't be surprised in 2 months when you have issues and you got normal outside of teenager issues because you've prioritized these things. You've given permission for them to miss these things. I think it's important to note that, like, hey, it's Wednesday night. This is priority. You can leave practice early. I'm all for a star athlete. That's great, but the chances of them going D1 and the chances of them going pro, few and far between. I more care about are they getting into heaven. So,
Right.
Yeah, Brian, we'll give you the last word on this.
All right. I'm reminded of something. I think, is Paul Brand here?
No.
Okay. He, on a panel like this a few months ago, he was talking about his daughter's involvement in softball and how they had to navigate that. And one of the things that he said that really struck me that I thought would be good advice for, okay, let's say you do have that D1, you know, they're just a generational talent or whatever and all that stuff. I think I would encourage the parent to, okay, you have this context. Now, are you discipling your child in how to follow Jesus in this context?
Yep.
And some of that means that you have some hard lines, like we talked about, you know, where, okay, Sundays, never, you know. Yep. Maybe Wednesdays, it's, hey, I want you at youth group 2 out of the 4 every month. I don't know. I think it depends on the kid and everything, but just having that sort of brain flip of like, not giving the discipleship over to the church for keeping them connected to Jesus, but are you as a parent, if you're going to make this decision and encourage them in pursuing this dream of theirs, yeah, are you willing to put in the extra work that it's going to require to disciple them? And are you going to keep them connected to the community? Because we don't have a silo faith. We have a faith where we're put into a community. And so how are you going to keep that kid connected to the community if they're not going to be there every Sunday or Wednesday? And so I think you can, if needed, you could have the conversation that way and ask the parents about it that way.
Have parents ask for message notes too.
Yeah.
Which is vital too.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
along that same line,
Dennis,
do you think it's more parental problem with the special needs and stuff like that than the kids?
is it more a parental problem, kids problem?
I think the younger the children are, the more it's a parental problem for sure. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And when as they get older, I think it's maybe 50-50. I don't. But I don't know. I've seen a lot of parents whenever they do say, "Hey, here's our lines. Here's where we're going to go." You know, the kids they follow suit. So maybe it is heavy on the parent side.
All right, I'm going to leave it at that. We've got to close this down. But are you guys available for a few minutes after we dismiss? If folks want to ask you individual questions or maybe get some of those resource ideas from you. All right, let's express some appreciation to these two guys. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Daddy. Appreciate it very much. Let me dismiss us with a word of prayer. Thank you all for being here. And see you back here again in January. Heavenly Father, thank you for the work you're doing in these churches that are represented on this panel, but also in all of the churches of this area, the work you're doing in making disciples out of young people. Lord, I pray for those junior high and senior high students that, Lord, they would truly catch the fire of the gospel deep in their hearts and their souls. Lord, I pray that they won't be dropouts, but that they, in fact, will be disciples who make disciples and bring others into the kingdom as well. So, Lord, bless these two men and the other student ministry leaders that are represented here today. Lord, work through them and help them develop young disciples for your Son, Jesus. Lord, thank you for these good friends, these men and women who are here today. I ask your blessing upon them as they return to their places of service. And thank you for our time together in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.